Great. So, thank you everybody for coming in so early. I really appreciate it. Here to talk about design in its most basic form, right? Hopefully, over the course of a few weeks, a few of these sessions, we'll build a really solid foundation, a really good toolbox that everybody has to help make their designs better. Ultimately, like what we're trying to get here is a way for everybody to improve the way they communicate visually with other people. Okay? So I'm gonna run you through some basics today, some real core things. There's a lot of them, but I try to narrow it down to 3. So we'll start out with design is everywhere. Every single person in this room is a designer. You have designed something in one shape, way, or form throughout your life. Right? I'm sure you do it every day. It's subconscious. You may not think of it as design as the way you see like my team as graphic designers making things like visually appealing. You guys all do that in your own way for your own purposes. What do you guys see? What is this? Somebody.
Database schema.
This is a database schema. This has been designed, right? Somebody understood the fundamentals and is able to build something super complex. I'm sure this is not complex compared to the systems that we have, but the ability is there. You designed it. You purposefully made decisions to help relay information in a certain way to another person. That's a form of design. Rajan.
It's a balance sheet.
This is a balance sheet. And you know what? Somebody designed this, right? They made conscious decisions to organize the information in certain ways to make it easily legible for the people that are viewing it, right? Your viewer, your audience.
It's not our balance sheet.
This is not our balance sheet. Francis, Sarah, anybody? There's a workout program and a eating program, right? This has been designed. It's not the most beautiful thing to look at, but somebody took the time to like group information and do things a certain way to relay information to another person in the easiest way possible. Obviously coders. Even the fact that you guys indent code certain ways so it's easily recognizable for other people on your team, that's design, right? You're consciously making decisions to do things a certain way, again, to help other people. The 3 things I want to cover today are pretty basic. They're like foundational elements of design. Movement, form, and space. We're going to dive into these a little bit. Usually, I've done this before, I've given lectures that are like an hour long. They suck, right? The best way to get better at design is to actually do it. So hopefully everybody has a pen, a paper, because we're actually going to be doing stuff. So if you don't have one, let me know we have extras. Great. So my first question, who in the room can draw? Show of hands. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Every single one of you can draw. You do this as a kid? You have the ability to draw. You have the ability to visually communicate with other people. It's just somewhere along the way, somebody was like, this isn't good. It's horseshit. This is good. I don't know what this kid was trying to convey, but like there's a story. You all have the ability to do this. And by practice, like you get better at visually communicating things. So that's why I want you guys to do these exercises that we're about to run through. Whenever you're drawing or sketching, putting things to paper, it's a good idea, or it's like a habit for designers, visual graphic designers, to do a warm-up. So we're going to like run through a real quick warm-up right now. What I want you guys to do is on your piece of paper, whatever you may have in front of you, I want you to draw a straight line halfway across your page. Anywhere at the top. Right? I want you to trace that line 5 times. Right? When you're doing this, try to get your arm into it. I know it's a little weird because you're sitting down, but like really like get into that line, feel it. What's gonna happen is for some of you guys, like you're gonna end up doing this, you're gonna get fridge, you're gonna get wobbles. That's okay, you're just warming up, right? As you get better at this, your lines will become more perfect. And I want you to do the same thing across, right below that, across the entire width of the page. And again, try to get your body into it. Draw from your elbow, like pull across, right? Don't just try to make these little things. It's got to be more of a fluid motion. You're trying to get some physical expression into the thing that you're drawing. We do the same thing with a squiggly line. So make a wave and then trace that wave. Sorry if the other offices can't see exactly what I'm doing. I apologize for that. No, they should be able to see it.
They can't see?
You guys good? Yeah. All right. And then the last thing we're going to do is circles. We're going to draw a grid of 9 circles, 3 by 3. A lot of people do this when they draw circles. They kind of make these hairy dashed lines. We're not going to do that. We're going to get our hands going in like a circular motion, and then commit to it. Try to make one line, like fluid motion, right? So just spin it around and then go for it. Can't do this wrong. The idea is just to get your juices flowing, creativity going, your arms loose, start to feel what you're putting on the paper. This is how we warm up. It's like a typical thing for any graphic designer, sketch artist, people like us. Like you just get it going. So now that we've warmed up, everybody's good. Oops, wrong way. We're gonna talk about movement, and we're gonna do some exercises in movement. Design is a lot about. Let's put it this way. It's some of the stuff we do, especially in our world, websites and things like that. Flat, right? 2-dimensional, single plane. That's not, people will say, oh, how do you show movement without like showing a movie, right? Like you need an animation or something. It's not true. This is movement in a very simple form, right? It's basic lines. You guys are just drawing lines, right? The squiggly line shows movement. This liquid, this whatever you want to call it, swoosh, swirl, whatever, this shows movement, right? It's so simple. But there's things that are done here, like things that will like taper off as they get further back, right? So you have this impression that like this line is moving even though it's a static image, right? Even simpler, with just straight lines, you can create that. You can create a whole bunch of movement in here, right? If you look at this image, it's almost as if like you're going into it and spinning at the same time. This is super basic. This is all straight lines, right? But this creates movement. But you can use this for, let's say, you want to focus in on something on your page or in your presentation, right? You may do this really subtle in the background, right? Try to highlight a certain area. This is like dead center, but like, let's say it was up here, right? You may want to like kind of conform your lines to like pull into that, whatever your key focal point is, right? Super basic. Things here like the weight of your line, right? Because these lines are heavier and these lines are thinner, it gives the illusion that like these are out here and then this is pulling you in, right? So this creates movement just by simple 2D lines in design. I'll give you a more practical example. It's a website, I think it's done pretty well. The lines here create movement, right? You see these 2 diagonals? They're very subtle, right? But they bring you right into the focal point, right? There's a lot of other things going on here, like color, typography, composition, and we'll get to those, right? But you have to understand like the basic flaws. Somebody's eye is moving through this site. Where do you want them to go? Where do you want them to look? We're going to pull them into the buy now button, just because of these like diagonal lines creating motion. So now it's your turn. I want you guys to maybe block off a little piece of your paper, and we're going to do a quick little exercise in movement. What I want you guys to do is use straight lines. And I want you to take your viewer's eye from one corner of your page to another corner. Okay? So you saw a couple of examples. If you want to just those, go for it. But think about how you can start your viewer, your user, whoever your audience is. Get them to come from one corner of your image down to the bottom. There's no wrong way to do it. So just give it a shot. Take 2 or 3 minutes. If anybody is feeling crazy, you can come up and try one on the board. It could be as basic as this.
That's what I do.
Very good, very simple, right? But try to go a little further. Try to use multiple lines to create movement. Bring your user from one side to the other. moving. Now your viewer's eye goes through your images. So we're going to jump to the next topic here, form. Form is a fancy way to say shapes. Everything has a form, everything occupies a space, right? Fundamental elements of graphic design, basic shapes, right? You can break things down into these basic items, right? If you want slight variations of these things, but essentially everything has these solid forms underneath it all. So I'll give you an example here. It's Mondrian, right? This is basic geometric shape, right? This is beautiful. This is amazing. There's other things going on here like color. Again, we'll get into that later, but like, so simple. There's balance here. There's unity. Break it down. It's a bunch of squares, right? If I told you guys to draw this awesome puppy right now that I want, would you be able to do it? And if I said it needed to be like kind of realistic and proportional and all that stuff, it'd be difficult, right? This puppy is just shapes, right? You can break everything down into basic shapes as a starting point, right? So that's how you break things down, but you can also build things up. This is pretty typical. It's a made-up example. Someone may come to somebody on the design team with a headline, some copy, and like a big image, right? How do you like break this down into basic shapes? How do you use this to build something bigger? How do you study the form here, right? So I know we have a title, maybe a big image, and a bunch of copy, right? So basic forms, no big deal. What you can turn that into is something like this, right? So it works both ways. You can build up and you can bring it down, right? We have a title. We do things like create motion and by like angling the big image that we have and breaking through like lines of copy to bring the eye over here. So this ties into the motion thing that we just went over. Essentially, it's this, right? Some basic shapes. It's a curved triangle swooshy thing and a bunch of squares. Like, you can lay things out like this and break everything down to its basic form. And when you start with those basic forms, rather than just pasting a bunch of stuff on a page, you'll come out with much more structured, much more readable, digestible designs. Now we're going to go to your turn. What I want you guys to do is look at the person next to you, take 2 minutes, break them down into basic shapes. Go for it. Either way, just pair up. Look over your shoulder, right? Draw their face if you want. Draw their full body. Draw them sitting in a chair. I don't know. Take anything in this room if you want. Break it down into basic shapes, right? The camera on the tripod in the back is just a triangle and squares, right? Keep it basic. Keep the form solid.
It's good that you're wearing glasses.
Cheeks.
On a snowman. It's got the Tin Man next to it.
Drawing person. Just a bunch of circles.
Please share one over, please.
That's pretty good. Like Commander's head.
Those were his cheeks, not his eyes.
But that's good. If you were to take that, Josh, a little bit further and like show it to someone, like maybe add a little bit of color for like the hair stuff, people would be like, I buy it. It's like a color icon, right? Like it's a basic breakdown. It's like how you go up. That's if you start to like take those forms out of basic squares and triangles, and you start to shape them into more complex shapes and forms, like trying to make an eye, you know? Sounds weird. But cool. You guys want a little bit more time? Moving along. The last major concept that I would like to talk about today is space. Space is super important in design. You may have noticed my presentation has a ton of space, right? I could have made this, let's say, what, 30-slide presentation. I could have crammed it all into 5 slides. It's not good design. It would be very cluttered. It would have way too much information. It would be hard to digest. People wouldn't know what to focus on. Adding all this white space, you may say it's a waste. I say it's deliberate, and it helps you to focus in on the main content. Right? There's all different types of space as well. Negative space. This is probably one of the most common depictions of space that you learn. What do you see? You see the vase or the chalice, whatever you want to call it, or do you see the two faces, right? This is negative space. Depends on, you can make the argument either way, but it's using space to create objects. Awesome one. Found this the other day. Martini house, right? You see martini glasses, people see the house, right? This uses space very well. This is using negative space. It's super simple, but super effective. Crazy, mind-blowing. What do you guys think? Hey, does the negative space here create the wine, or is the wine creating the cliffs? All right. This is good use of negative space, which is space in general, right? Furthermore, this artist screws with your head a little bit by making this person be under and this person be over. Also use of negative space.
Check out that movement.
Yes. Awesome. So much movement here. You start in the back, you come forward. This is like beautiful example of everything that we kind of just went over. The form is very basic, right? Like, this isn't some complex, mind-blowing, realistic render that people can do. I mean, that's awesome in its own thing. But, this is just simply beautiful if I had to classify it. A little more practical for us. Websites, right? We always talk about white space, negative space. Sometimes we do it okay, sometimes we really suck at it, to be honest. Yeah. This is some sort of e-commerce site over in London. I actually don't know if this is a real establishment or not. These guys may know. But look at the use of space here, right? You may say, we can take navigation, Paris, London, jam it up here, right? You could probably condense this a lot. You can make these a little bit bigger. You have space here, like this, a lot of space. I think this is awesome. I think all of this is very well done, right? The company logo, the brand, is super highlighted, right? Because it's wide open. There's so much space around it. You can focus on it, but still know that there's other things going around. There's a giant image here, and they're not afraid to like use all this real estate just to get this very simple message across, right? The breaks here, these verticals, one are the same, right? So there's some repetition there, which is also a nice feature that we'll go over in some later class. But they're far enough apart that it's easily digestible, right? You can jump around this page. Although there's a lot of information here, you're just kind of like, I can break this down into smaller chunks, smaller forms, right? And get through this very easily. So I think this is very well done. So this is the last exercise we're going to run through today. I actually have a handout to start it off. Actually, I'll run through this quick. The other day, I was tasked with putting together this flyer, and I had like 5 minutes to do it. Right? It was a recap of the holiday party. It's a hypothetical, this actually didn't happen. And I just slammed everything up on the page. That's it, right? That's all I had time for. There's a ton of problems with this, right? Space is poorly used. There's not a lot of motion. The form is all over the place. There's nothing consistent about it. What I want you guys to do, I have handouts of this image. It's a little washed out, so you can draw. I want you guys to take some time and go through this and propose how you would make it better. All right? So at the other offices, JB, I think you printed out a bunch, right? The best. You also printed out a bunch. Taking extras. So don't be afraid to want to attack this thing. No, I'm telling you this is absolute crap. Think about the things that think about the things that we learned today, right? Movement, form, space, right? Break this up. You can sketch on your own notebook if you don't want to start off like marking up the existing thing that I make that here. Break this down into basic shapes, right? You know what you have, you know your content, right? Think about how you put that to page in a way that will take your reader's eye through the experience of reading this document, right? You have a big header, you have the company logo, you have a series of images in various sizes, right? You have a ton of copy and you have a quote, right? Take your viewer, your user, your audience through this experience. Reading this thing should be an experience. If that's a lot and you want, you can mark up the printout, try to just straighten some things out, clean up the forms a little bit, you know, before you jump into a full kind of layout thing.
Need 'em.
Fix it.
I think these pictures should just be taken out and then this is fine.
I was told that so anyway,
I don't know.
first thing I was doing, so just make it expense forms. Things like that. Don't have all this phone appointments. Just make it like a browser which you can ship.
So that bottom is.
Yeah.
I know, me too, that's why I was like,
Compared to other ones. Here it gets.
Yeah, I think
It's a JB and Yvette. If you guys want to like walk around a little bit and give some commentary on what people are doing, I'm doing it here, so I just want you guys to be like left out. Unless you want to like hold it up to the screen, I can like come over and make comments.
That's extremely frustrating.
We knew that's fine. We knew to find it too.
Got about 5 minutes left. I'm happy to like go over all this stuff with you guys like afterwards. Just hold on to it. But, like I already see some like really awesome ideas coming out. And there are things like I've been doing this for God knows how long, many years, and like there's things I didn't see that I just heard. Rajan actually was saying use the picture on the bottom left, right? Because they're pointing. Use that to like draw emotion and point to something that's really important, which like is a very good year, whatever the title is. Like playing off those two elements to like help point to something that's very important. It was really cool, and I didn't even think of it. What I ended up doing was something like very basic, right? I took everything, broke it down into basic shapes, and then broke it into like this kind of layout. Right, so let's make the title bigger. Let's use the next chunk logo. The big image, the smaller images, the copy, the quote, and more copy. Just by breaking down all that stuff that was on the page into basic form, I was able to like turn it around and create something like this, right? There's nothing spectacular about this. This is solid. This is readable. This is a really good start. It's solid, right? Creative, maybe not the greatest. Maybe not the greatest use of movement. Probably could switch this around, right? There's a lot of things that can happen here, but when you see this, it's a lot more legible and understandable than the crap that I gave you guys to begin with. So, with that, those are the 3 basic things I wanted to cover today. Like I said, there's a series of other things that I'll cover in like 102, 103, things like color, things like typography, things like perspective. They're a little more in depth, and I probably wouldn't try to cover as many things in one session. Right? So, if you can remember whenever you're designing, whenever you're trying to relay information to somebody else visually, think of these things. Think of your flows. Think of the space you have to work in and how to best utilize it, and think about moving them in the person's journey through maybe your piece or your composition. So that's it. Happy to answer any questions you guys may have. We have like 5 minutes before I guess we're going to break, right? We're set up for the next call. So I'm happy to field questions. I'm happy to go over stuff again afterwards. If you have specific questions about what you would have done or anything that I've used. Is there a question? I didn't it's like a very slight hand raise.
So, like when it comes to design, each person has his own way of thinking, perception, right? So, unless like you work with a group or like a bunch of people over a period of time, you make this judgment call, yes, this is how it should be, or this is not. So, is there any right or wrong?
So Gory's asking, for those who couldn't hear, people develop styles almost, right? There's a varying degree of ways that you can handle any different design project, right? You may get used to a certain group of people and the way they do things. Is there any right or wrong? No, there's no right or wrong. One of the awesome things about design is, like, it's very easy. You can have opinions on things, right? And you may consciously, deliberately decide to do something. You don't know how other people are going to react to it. Some people will agree with you, some people won't, right? But like, it's your job as a designer to like really, whatever your goal is, help everybody get it, to like understand that goal, right? It's a little bit of a fluffy answer that they show us. There's no right way or like wrong way. There's better ways, right? There's more effective ways. But if you came up to me with any design, I could take this, right? It can be improved. It can go go back to the basics. It can be strengthened. You can practice things. Like these core fundamental abilities that people have, like when these are ingrained in your system, this is, this was impossible. This was hard. Like to break down stuff I've been doing for years into like very simple tasks, right? And like how to build this. Basically, I want to give you guys like a toolbox of things you can go back to strengthen your designs, right? No wrong way, no right way. Like there's just better ways, more effective ways, newer ways, elaborate ways. Like it's an ever-changing. You can't do bad. Like, it's hard. Maybe not legible, but like I would never call it bad.
We work with a lot of graphs, charts, and numbers. There's probably a whole class on it, right? Best practices, but are there one or two things like when you see a chart or a graph that you're like, I absolutely hate this and this has been wrongly made?
Yeah. Me personally, oh, sorry. Roger's saying like they deal with a lot of graphs and charts in the finance world, and yes, there could probably be a whole class on like visualization of data and how to make it more effective. Yeah, there's some tips, right? Like if you're trying to make a point in your, I don't know, 13-month spreadsheet, like make it, call it out. Change the color, change the size, right? Put a freaking arrow on it. Like, that's so basic, but like, when you display a ton of data and it's not really clear what you're trying to get at, that's like the worst thing. You may want to support it, right? Have like these pH charts and then all the time but I really want you to focus on January, right? Like that's just one simple thing. Color is like an easy one, right? If everything's gray, and you decide to make one ball blue, that'll definitely pop out. It's a little bit outside of like this realm, but hierarchy like comes into play, not only in finance and graphs, visually, everything. I could cover it, it's awesome.
Thanks.
Any questions in the UK or Boston?
You guys? That's enough.
Any questions in Boston?
Thumbs up from the guys. No, Mike, you can ask JB. No, go ahead. I got time for one more, so let's. If you guys.
I was just wondering where you would suggest going for design inspiration.
Everywhere. Outside. Go to a museum. Like, I mean, if you want like websites, I'll give you. I can shoot out a list, but like, just get your ass outside, man. Like I said, everything is designed. You're looking at the TV, but it should be looking at the camera. Everything is designed, right? It's everywhere. And when you start to like really walk around with this kind of stuff, thinking about movement, thinking about form, like when you see it in other places, you'll be amazed. You'll start to notice things that you may not have looked at before when you're looking at it through like a design. So just get out there and experience it. And hit up a museum. I mean, that's like the most basic place to go. You guys got some good ones over there.
So, as a designer, what's the biggest frustration you have when someone comes to you? What information are they missing? What expectations are they missing from you getting something to giving something back to they're looking for? How do you? Where do you think the communication breakdowns are?
So David's asking about the communication breakdown between like. So you're saying like somebody comes to me with an idea and then they're just like, do it. It's hard, but like I hope that these courses like help people to get their ideas out of their mouth and onto paper, right? And like I can walk around and see what everybody did for this last exercise, and knowing like what their goal is, like what are you trying to intend with this? And ours was taking these people through this document, right? The more you can contribute visually, especially like in a designer, like people are going to visually see stuff, right? Put it on paper, even if we change it 180 completely, like having it down, saying like this is the goal, this is what I have. I mean, if it's a text document, it's a text document, but having a goal in mind, that they're clear that this is what we want to do, we need to get this person from A to B, whatever that's the most helpful thing, just knowing what is the goal of this, what are we trying to achieve? You guys come to my team